This is Dolynny TV. Good evening. I'm Tyson Dolynny here with the latest on the Oilers news today. Friends, it's been a day for the Edmonton Oilers. We'll recap it all shortly, but before we get there, if you're new to the channel, I'm going to attack you right now. Hey, get on it. Consider hitting that subscribe button here on Dolynny TV. I'd love to have you aboard. We're right in closing on 11,000 subscribers. And friends, with that, we will move on to the news today. Obviously, I want to get in and recap everything that's gone on in Edmonton Oilers land today. There's been a lot and 2 videos up already, live streaming earlier today, but there is news missed in the middle, as if you saw Patrick from the Oilers Fanatics video, you would see the rundown there, that there is a couple of things that just have sifted out since, and we'll get to that right now. Obviously, number one today, the Oilers traded Jesse Puljujarvi to the Carolina Hurricanes in what can only be described as a cap dump move, which was evident in the move that was made later for Mattias Ekholm. In this move, though, the Oilers did something sneaky and very good, right? Obviously, we all said the return for Jesse Puljujarvi was not going to be very good, and today instead, Ken Holland decided to have potentially one of his best days as Oilers general manager outside of signing Zach Hyman all that time ago and signing Ryan Nugent-Hopkins in that little window. But the Oilers got Patrick Puistola back in return for Jesse Puljujarvi. You're wondering if I even said that name right. Well, he's another Finnish youngster, I believe about 22, who's leading his team currently in the Liga in points this season. The caveat there is that he needs to be re-signed, or signed is actually the more correct term, by June 1st, or he becomes a UFA. Now that's kind of funny that it is June 1st, because you sit here and say, well, okay, what is happening at that time? The Stanley Cup Finals would be happening at that time. The Oilers could potentially trade Jesse Puljujarvi for nothing before they win the Stanley Cup, depending on how everything shakes out. Dreaming, obviously, but you get where I'm going, is there is potential in that scenario coming to fruition. Now, in addition to all this, right, we can talk about Mattias Ekholm, we can talk about Jesse Puljujarvi. I want to bring up something that we talked about on stream last night. It's potentially the smallest part of last night's live stream in everything that went on. It's my best live stream of the entire regular season so far, and I thank you so much for being a part of it. But Devon Shore was assigned to the Bakersfield Condors yesterday. Midway through the live stream, we got a text message that said, hey, look, this is the insider from Bakersfield just letting you know Devon Shore does not have an arrival date or time scheduled in Bakersfield as of yet. At that point, it was about 8 o'clock at night. And that's kind of odd that the Oilers would assign a player midday and not have him already there by 8 o'clock at night. I brushed it off. I just said, oh, that's something interesting to mention. I'll mention it on stream. Well, today, Devon Shore had yet again another active day. I've got a pretty good running joke that I don't want to spoil. I use it in all my DMs with other Oilers people, but Devon Shore gets a phone call, I believe, from the same guy every day, it seems like. And again, he was informed today that he's been recalled by the Oilers, as if that was not the plan. And this is why I'm saying I couldn't believe I couldn't think of this last night when I said it, is that he was never supposed to go to Bakersfield because the Oilers were making their moves today and Devon Shore was staying in Edmonton in case of that. Obviously, with Jesse Puljujarvi shipped off for Puistola, that became the case. He gets recalled midday. Then the Oilers trade for Mattias Ekholm. This becomes a big talk of the town. Oilers Nation at one point had 1,400 people watching their live stream with Tyler Yaremchuk and the boys talking all about the Oilers acquiring Mattias Ekholm. Shout out Yaremchuk, by the way, Nate RTA alumni, fellow Nate RTA alumni in year after me. However, that becomes that, right? Is Devon Shore is somehow affected by that via having to change his jersey number, being a great teammate up front first, which is what we've kind of come to know Devon Shore about the past little few weeks, is he gives up number 14, switches to Mikko Koskinen's old number 19, so as Mattias Ekholm can retain his 14 from Nashville. So that's fantastic on that front. But on the Mattias Ekholm front, friends, the Edmonton Oilers sent Tyson Barrie to the Predators as part of that 4-piece package for Ekholm. Honestly, I have to say this quite frankly. It's a sad day in Oiler country because thing is, Tyson Barrie, I was not a fan of the idea during free agency way back when we signed him. I even had a video the day before saying we absolutely don't need him. Stay away. It would be a waste of your time. And almost three-ish years later, I will say Tyson Barrie was a very good addition for the Edmonton Oilers. I absolutely goofed that one up. I honestly, right, I used to take some hard stances just to have an opinion, and that clearly was not a good opinion to have. And I'm very sad to see a very likable Tyson Barrie go, a fun guy in the room, right? You've probably by this point, if you're at all on social media, you've seen the picture of him dancing on the boat on the trip to BC when we went out to play those when we went out, I believe, to Abbotsford to play the Canucks way back in the preseason. Yeah, you saw those videos. You know what I'm talking about. Tyson Barrie dancing on the boat, and it was a very sad day seeing those memes for what will probably be the last day as an Edmonton Oiler. Now this too, he was a big power play presence for the Edmonton Oilers and a very important piece of that power play. There's been a lot of debate since the trade about was he truly the power play quarterback or is he just a guy that knew how to puck handle and puck possession out there and was able to benefit accordingly. Really, that's your move to make and not mine. I don't have to tell you what Tyson Barrie was or wasn't. Obviously, what he was is an important trade chip to allow us to get the salary and the player that is Mattias Ekholm. There was a time for Tyson Barrie that he led the NHL in D points, right, defenseman points, and didn't get a single vote for the Norris Trophy. That's a whole thing that happened while he was here. And like I said earlier, I'll gladly any bad words I've ever said about Tyson Barrie because this comes to us in a point where he gets us something very valuable that we need for a long, deep Stanley Cup playoff run, and hopefully the piece that puts us over the top to the eventual goal at the end of the season and playoffs. Now, when we get onto it, the Oilers had a four-piece package. There was also another player traded in that move. The Oilers passed off Reed Schaefer to the Nashville Predators as well in the trade and this year's first round selection. So there's two kind of firsts involved in that trade alongside Tyson Barrie to make the salary cap work. Reed Schaefer, if you're not too familiar, he had a really booming start with his Oilers career in his preseason stint, becoming a fan favorite very quickly in limited preseason playing time. Eventually, we went to Seattle. We left him there with the Seattle Thunderbirds, and he's just kind of had a fun season, winning gold with Team Canada at the World Juniors, and now moving on to his first pro club, or maybe in the Nashville Predators. His career ahead is bright, and I think this is why I lumped these 2 points together. Is it'll take time to develop though. And so too will that first round pick that we gave up. And I think after you see Julien Brisebois, the GM of Tampa Bay's statement on why he gave up 5 picks for Tanner Jeannot, I could use that to win 5 years from now, or I could win with Steven Stamkos now. And that's clearly kind of what the Oilers have made clear here today as well by Ken Holland making the moves he has. Is we're in win now mode. I said at the start of the year it was cup or bust, and guess what? I believe that's still in more so today is true of the Edmonton Oilers. And the cost of a cup is often tomorrow is what I wrote down to say to you. And why do I have that there? Because no one knows that better than Ken Holland. And here he is going out there to try and get better on today to get this job done. There was also a 4th round pick given up for Mattias Ekholm. And oh, by the way, they retained 4%, not 4 million, 4% of Ekholm's salary to get him down to a $6 million player for us for this year and the next 3 years following. Mattias Ekholm, though, he comes to us as a big addition to the blue line. He's a guy who is, I believe, from everything I've ever read from a Predators fan, very well regarded by the vast majority of Predators fans, and a guy who seems well received by any hockey mind in the business. A guy, right, a pro's pro, does his job well, does it to a T, and will develop Evan Bouchard like no tomorrow is kind of what we're being pitched. As I said yesterday, Duncan Keith-esque player. He's 6'4", 215 pounds, meaning we've got that big-bodied lefty shot we've been clamoring for since the start of the NHL season, right? I mean, it was evident. Brett Kulak could be a good serviceable guy in the second pair if needed, but he's not the solution. And the Oilers leaders, right, they made it clear they wanted an upgrade on the back end. Well, Ken Holland has delivered that, even though it's not Erik Karlsson. Offensively, Ekholm he brings a respectable 18 points this season. And I think here, okay, 18 points, we just downgraded from a 40-50 point defenseman. What are we doing here? Well, he can be an offensive plus on this team, right? This team has Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl. All you have to do is pass them the puck behind the net, and you can probably get an assist every 3 games. So if Ekholm can't find a way to finish with 25 points this year, I mean, now we have concerns next year, but you get my points there. And I think, too, looking most likely, as I mentioned prior, to be paired with Evan Bouchard, puck distribution will be a key focus for Ekholm's game day prep. What I mean by that is when Ekholm goes into every game and says, what do I have to do to contribute offensively versus defensively, all he has to do is make one good pass a game, and he could net himself a point per game, right? With Bouchard blasting shots on net, even if it gets tipped in front, it's quite easily a point for Ekholm on the assist secondary. So there's a ton that Ekholm could make happen here offensively for this Oilers group. So given all this, friends, I would say Ken Holland has delivered an absolute day to remember in Oilers land, and we'll be looking at still a piece or two more this trade deadline. I think it was mentioned tonight by Darren Dreger at one point that Nick Bjugstad is a target of Ken Holland's, and as well, with Nick Bjugstad being scratched tonight by the Coyotes, would you not be surprised to see something come to fruition tomorrow? It could be quite something to see another big deal from Ken Holland tomorrow for Nick Bjugstad, who would be the lowest cost player out of the situation we've kind of had unfold here at $900,000. But before we get to that point, it's just one of those things. It seems like for the Oilers, adding a big body up front that's capable of playing the wing and is a righty is the last piece we are absolutely looking for at this point. And that's Nick Bjugstad in place of a guy like Jesse Puljujarvi on a $900,000 deal. So, right, Arizona probably doesn't have retention slots left if I'm doing my math correctly. So he'd be a perfect retain half scenario if the Oilers can find a third party like Montreal or Vancouver. He's on an expiring deal this year. He's in his 30s, right? Works out perfect. And I think a couple of picks, low-end picks, like a 6th rounder that you picked up from the Nashville Predators would be enough to get this deal done, right? You'd have to have a pick going Arizona, pick going to whoever else to retain half, and you get Nick Bjugstad for $450. And hey, going into Friday, you still have the ability to add one more piece if you really, really want to, if you're Ken Holland. But that's where this leads me to ask. Some would ask, will Ken Holland swing for the fences one more time before the deadline's over? And this is something that I think the Oilers are absolutely out on. But just in this scenario, it involves potentially getting Chychrun alongside Bjugstad in the Arizona deal. It's unlikely. Anything is possible, though, right? That's kind of what today's proven. We've gone from Ekholm being an absolute impossibility for the Oilers to the move's done. It's happening. He'll be in the lineup tomorrow against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Go figure. But it's ultimately, in my opinion, if it were to happen, you know what the trade market is for Jacob Chychrun. You know that the Arizona Coyotes are asking way too much. It's a deal that would be a pull it off at the last second if the price drops drastically kind of thing. That's what I view it as, right? Is might happen if everything and the stars align. Sense is currently, though, in my opinion, and in the professional opinions on Twitter, this ain't happening. But it's, again, one of those things. If we're talking about trading with Arizona, why wouldn't we try to go for another home run and find a way, right? Warren Fogle comes up in that conversation, and you find a third party, and you probably make it happen. And, of course, Chychrun's still got some term as well. So this Oilers do believe, trying to say too many things, the Oilers' blue line, D-line, could be very well bolstered. You think about that 05-06 picture that I have somewhere around here in this basement that says the last line of defense, and it's all those great guys we had on the Oilers blue line back then. Jason Smith, Chris Pronger, Steve Stais, Yaroslav Spacek, you get the idea. But this also precludes the, concludes concludes the Erik Karlsson sweepstakes. He's staying in San Jose, I would say, at least until the summer. And at this point, if the Oilers go deep in the playoffs, either the finals or win the cup, Erik Karlsson to Edmonton is dead and we move on for good. That's my sense on that one. Never say never, but it's over, and that's all I got to say on that front. And as I mentioned earlier, Mattias Ekholm, barring delays, will be in the lineup versus the Leafs tomorrow night. The Oilers will look to get back in the win column, my friends, tomorrow night following a tough, hard-fought loss against the Boston Bruins. I'm Tyson, this is Dolynny TV. Thank you so much for being aboard this evening. It's a 15.5-minute recap. I had that script written note, and I thought I'd speak it out in 5 minutes, but here we go, friends. There's, to those of you that have been looking for a more concrete video, you got it. Just took some time. We just had to have some time to work it all out. Have a great night. I'm up on out of here.